I'm proud to announce, Brent drawled, his Rolex catching the LED glare like it was in on the joke, that the Pentagon AI Defense Framework, our $900 million flagship, is being handed off to someone with fresh vision. My son-in-law, Ethan, will lead from here. And just like that, 21 years of my life got flushed down a mahogany conference table. The room didn't clap. Not really. A few executives did that awkward finger tap on the tabletop thing people do when they're too scared to seem ungrateful. Most just kept their eyes on the croissants. No one looked at me. Ethan grinned with his whole face. One of those startup bro, TEDx teeth grins that made you want to bleach your own memory. He stood up, adjusting his Patagonia vest over a shirt that still had a security tag dangling from the armpit. I'm excited to bring agile methodologies and modern thinking to a legacy system that, frankly, could use some disruption, he said, with the confidence of a man who once asked if Pentagon meant it had 5 servers. I didn't move. Didn't twitch. Not even when Brent patted my shoulder like I was a golden retriever being gently euthanized. Of course, Brent continued. Let's all give a round of applause to Eric for laying the foundation. Retirement's gonna look good on you, buddy. Retirement? That was new. He said it like we'd talked about it over cigars. Like I hadn't pulled 72-hour shifts at NORAD, rewriting legacy code during shutdown threats. Like I hadn't built the very framework they were now hijacking. I smiled. Small. Polite. Surgical. Not because I felt calm, but because rage that loud has to wear a mask. If it leaks out too fast, it gets dismissed as emotion. Unprofessional. Unstable. No, if you want your revenge to matter, you pour it into a mold and let it set. Ethan started a PowerPoint. Slide 1, the future of defense, a millennial perspective. The Pentagon seal was Comic Sans. I wish I were joking. I mean, look, I respect Eric's work, obviously, Ethan blabbered. But the next gen of warfare's about synergy, right? Blockchain, gamification, AI, all that jazz. We need speed. We need swagger. Swagger. The man used swagger in a defense briefing. The man who once asked if you could just download a new firewall. I could feel the blood leaving my fingertips. But I didn't say a word. Not when he mispronounced heuristics. Not when he told the brass in DC that we could probably outsource encryption to Fiverr. I just sat there. Like a man on fire in a room full of smoke detectors no one bothered to wire. Then it hit me. The only reason Ethan was even considered for this was because of a yacht party Brent threw last year. Ethan brought infused tequila and made a TikTok with the senator's niece. That was it. That's the resume that replaced mine. That's how fragile legacy becomes in the hands of ego. When the meeting adjourned, no one spoke to me. No handshakes. No goonbis. Just the soft hiss of wheels on carpet as laptops got closed and cowards fled to their cubicles. I walked out last. My badge still around my neck, still warm from the sweat of a man pretending not to be unraveling. At the elevator, I paused. Watched my reflection in the brushed metal doors. Tired. Wrinkled. A face that had spent too long blinking at code and ignoring birthdays. A face that had given everything to a system built to erase people like me quietly. So I straightened my tie, took a breath, and smiled again. But this time, it reached my eyes. Because they didn't know. They didn't know about the filing. Didn't know about the name. Didn't know the patent wasn't under Eric Hammond. It was under my legal maiden surname. And they'd just thrown me out of my own house. That MY keycard still worked the next morning, which was honestly a surprise. I half expected to find security waiting for me with a smile and a box, the way they do when someone becomes a liability, in a building full of corporate Kool-Aid. But no, just the familiar mechanical beep of the scanner, and the soft click of a door unlocking like nothing had happened. The office smelled like toner and betrayal. People looked up when I walked in. Not all at once, just little flickers of movement. Eyes darting back to screens like they hadn't heard the news in the Slack thread titled, Leadership Update Party Popper. Some gave me those forced smiles that shrank at the corners. Others did that Midwestern thing where they nod and pretend it's just another Tuesday. I didn't say a word. I didn't need to. My desk sat in the corner, modest, cluttered, lived in. 15 years of coffee rings and emergency bug fixes. The keyboard still had that little tilt I liked, and there was still a sticky note on the second monitor that said, "Don't forget Brent's daughter's ballet recital, again." Funny thing, I forgot anyway. I opened the drawers slowly, methodically, like I was disarming a bomb. Old hard drives, prototype sketches, a photo of my daughter holding up a science fair trophy, like it was the Stanley Cup. I paused on that one, slid it into the folder without a sound. Behind me, muffled whispers. Half pity, half curiosity. I heard Michelle from Legal whisper, "He's actually here? Did they not?" And Greg from DevOps, that spineless barnacle, mumbled back, "He's probably just grabbing his stuff. Ethan's already taken over the Slack channels." That stung more than I expected. I didn't touch the plaques. Didn't touch the framed Employee of the Year award Brent once gave me with a smirk like he was doing me a favor. I didn't need trophies. I'd built the goddamn skeleton of the project with nothing but whiteboard fumes and coffee shop napkins. If they wanted symbols, they could keep them. From the corner of my eye, I saw Ethan stroll in, late of course, venti Starbucks in one hand, AirPods in like he was doing damage control for a hostile alien invasion instead of mismanaging a government defense contract. "Yo, Eric," he said, giving me that finger gun gesture that makes you want to take up arson. "Just wanna say, no hard feelings, man. This industry's all about evolution, right?" I smiled, tight-lipped. "Sure. Just be careful not to evolve us into a federal indictment." He blinked, tried to laugh like it didn't land. Classic Eric. Always the deadpan. "You'll see, we're gonna modernize the hell out of this thing. Get rid of all that old-school glue code, start fresh. Rip and replace, baby." "Sounds like a plan," I said, locking the leather folder shut and sliding it into my messenger bag. "Just remember, when you rip out a spine, the body usually collapses." He didn't get it. That folder? It wasn't for nostalgia. Inside was one printed document. Something so critical it should have never existed in hard copy, but I didn't trust digital anymore. Not with idiots like Ethan handing out admin credentials like Halloween candy. It was the original patent registration. Not the version filed by the company. Not the summary in our SharePoint. No, this was the real one. The first one. The one I'd drafted 7 years ago in a hotel room in Arlington, after pulling a 42-hour sprint to solve the autonomous targeting conflict. Filed under my maiden name. Never transferred. Never updated. And because of a clerical oversight, and maybe a little divine laziness, still legally mine. I didn't take my mousepad. Didn't take the mug that said "World's Okayest Engineer." I left the monitor on with the IDE still open, just like they'd find it after a breach, mid-compile, mid-thought, mid-exodus. At the elevator, I glanced back once. No applause. No tears. Just Greg scrolling through TikTok, Michelle reapplying lipstick, and Ethan trying to explain the difference between front-end and firmware to a confused intern. I walked out without fanfare. No cardboard box. No tears. Just a smile. A real one this time. Because they still didn't know. The elevator stopped on the executive floor. Mahogany everything, thick carpets that muffled regret, and the faint smell of overpriced leather and old money trying to pretend it still mattered. I wasn't planning to stop there. My hands were full, and my soul felt like roadkill. But then I heard it, glass clinking, that fake laugh rhythm you only hear when people are networking themselves into moral bankruptcy. Brent's voice cut through the hallway like a steak knife dipped in condescension. "I mean, come on, gentlemen. The transition was seamless," he purred, likely to the 3 investors whose names were always redacted in the internal decks. "Ethan's got energy. Vision. Contact. The Pentagon doesn't want relics, they want rock stars." Relics. That was me. A pause. Then the cork pop. I leaned just enough around the corner to catch sight of the conference suite. It had been retrofitted for executive synergy, which was code for overpriced scotch and uncomfortable couches where real work went to die. Ethan was standing there like a kid who just peed his name in the snow and expected a medal. He was talking to a man I recognized, General McCarthy, Pentagon liaison, hardliner, a man who could detect weakness faster than he could spell AI. "We're gonna rebrand the entire architecture," Ethan said, slurring confidence through his third glass. "Make it sleek. Sexy. Think Iron Man meets DARPA." I nearly choked on my own saliva. Sexy. He just said sexy to a 4-star general discussing defense infrastructure. Brent chimed in. Eric was a good guy. Loyal. But let's face it, he was legacy. Built great bones. But bones don't sell. People want skin. And Ethan here? He's got skin in the game and the family. McCarthy didn't laugh. He just nodded like men do when they've already calculated your funeral costs. I should have felt broken. Should have marched in there, flipped the table, slapped them with my credentials and every sleepless night I gave to building the command modules. But I didn't. Because while they were busy humping their own delusions, I was running the math. They'd sent the revised contract to the Pentagon without rechecking the patent registration. Brent assumed our internal database, with its out-of-date metadata and half-merged legal files, was airtight. But what they didn't know, what no one bothered to confirm, was that when I first registered the core predictive combat algorithm, I did it fast, under pressure, and under my maiden surname. Because back then, I still had a wife. And a reason to keep my name separate. It was messy. Lawyers were involved. But through all of it, the one thing that never changed was that little detail in the paperwork. It should have been updated. It never was. And no one, not compliance, not legal, not even Brent in his drunken, title-sniffing arrogance, thought to double-check. Because whose second guess is a win when it smells like money? I stepped back from the corner as Ethan started doing a mock demo on his iPad, holding it up to the general like a kid at a science fair. We're gamifying drone strikes, he said. It's like Pokemon Go, but for bad guys. Gamifying. Drone strikes. Jesus. I could almost hear the audit alarm screaming from inside McCarthy's skull. But I didn't stick around. I didn't need to see the crash in real time. As I walked past the etched glass doors, someone behind me said, "Wait, was that Eric?" And someone else replied, "Thought he was gone." I was. But not in the way they thought. Not gone. Just waiting. Watching. And holding the one card no one remembered existed. They toasted upstairs to their bright future, blind to the detonation cord already coiled beneath their feet. And me? I took the stairs. Smiling that IT started with a voicemail. No screaming. No sirens. No headlines. Just a soft ding at 9:42 a.m. on a Tuesday while I was eating leftover pad thai in my sweatpants. Watching squirrels fight over a cigarette, but on my porch. Mr. Hammond? This is Alan Price from the Department of Defense, Pentagon Procurement Division. We had a couple questions about the architecture you developed. Call us back when convenient. That was it. No panic in his voice. No hint of the inferno they'd lit themselves. Just the calm before a very expensive storm. I took my time. Because by then, I knew what they were discovering, bit by painful bit. I imagined it like a slow striptease of incompetence. Ethan, sitting in on his first Pentagon status call, trying to explain the difference between behavioral prediction models and a Netflix algorithm. We're using machine learning, he probably said, but like, next-gen, self-aware. Basically quantum, but lean. Lean. He called the defense framework lean. A $900 million contract, and he spoke about it like it was a juice cleanse. I had friends, real ones deep in the belly of DC, who started texting me cryptic updates. Joe. Your boy just told McCarthy the targeting algorithm could autocorrect like an iPhone. Someone's trying to locate the patent file. Why does it say holdings unknown in clause 4.3? Did you register under a different name or something? Legal's confused. That last one made me laugh. Out loud. Alone in my kitchen with the blinds half drawn. Meanwhile, Brent was too busy running PR like a pageant mom. Daily calls with investors, interviews about legacy-free leadership, and LinkedIn posts dripping with faux humility. Honored to see the next generation carry our vision forward. #innovation, #defense, #blessed. Blessed. He used blessed while a wet cardboard cutout of a CTO was tanking a defense-grade system on live calls with generals who once planned drone campaigns in caves. By Friday, Ethan's shine had turned to flop sweat. My contact in systems called me after hours, whispering like we were back in high school dodging hall monitors. Eric, man. He couldn't even explain the recursive packet tunnels. Said the cloud would handle it. The cloud, Eric. to McCarthy's face. I didn't respond. Just sipped my coffee and watched a pigeon die of dignity outside my window. Then came the official email. Subject: urgent. Patent chain of ownership verification needed. They used all caps. That's how you know it's real. Apparently, the Pentagon legal team requested full documentation on the core algorithm. Ethan, scrambling, sent them the internal index. But when they matched it with USPTO records, they hit the wall. Patent #US 8713-990 C was not filed under the company's name, nor under Brent's, nor even mine, at least, not the name they knew. Instead, it was filed under Eric Renner, my pre-marriage legal name. They ran a background check, probably thinking it was a ghost. A clerical error. Some long-dead consultant they forgot to pay. Nope. Just me. Just the man they iced out for having too much legacy code in his blood. And that's when Alan Price called again. This time I answered. "Mr. Hammond," he said, voice tight now. "Just a quick clarification. Are you or were you ever legally known as Eric Renner?" "Yes," I said, letting the silence stretch like a rubber band ready to snap. "And are you aware that the original framework for the Project Vigil protocol was filed under that name?" "I am." A pause. "Would you be willing to speak with our compliance officers regarding the intellectual property chain?" "I'd be happy to. Because see, here's what most people don't understand. The Pentagon doesn't care about your champagne toasts. They don't care about your LinkedIn clout or your viral thought leadership. They care about who owns the thing they just gave nearly $1 billion to. And when that question turns into a maybe, the money freezes. The audits begin. The dogs come sniffing." I hung up the phone and finally laughed, long and full. The way you do when every insult, every slight, every fake smile from Brent comes back to you like a comedy montage before the guillotine drops. They'd handed a live nuke to a toddler in Yeezys. And the countdown had already begun. The first real sign of panic came not from a lawyer or a general, but from a confused intern in procurement who replied all by mistake. Subject line: urgent. Patent discrepancy on Vigil protocol. Who is Eric Renner? She probably thought she was forwarding it privately. Instead, it went to 32 recipients, including defense contractors, legal, and someone at DARPA whose only contribution was following. 37 minutes later, a cascade of red flags lit up across encrypted inboxes. That's when the real chaos started. By Monday morning, the company's legal team was officially looped in, which is code for someone FK'd up, and now we're printing PDFs like it's 1999. I imagine Brent was still in bed when the general counsel called him, stammering about ownership uncertainties and fatal procedural oversights. I didn't have to imagine Ethan's reaction, though. Someone leaked a recording of his internal Zoom meltdown to me via an anonymous Proton mail. I watched it twice with my morning eggs. I thought the patent was transferred already. I mean, the database says it's internal, right? Right. The legal director looked like he aged 15 years in 5 minutes. "Ethan, it says internal attribution, pending. You never followed through. The original registration predates your father-in-law's buyout." But who the hell is Eric Renner? That line alone made my entire ribcage smile. I was folding laundry when Alan Price called again. Only this time he wasn't so polite. "Mr. Hammond. Eric, sorry, a Renner. We need clarity. Fust. The IP assignment appears incomplete, and without verified ownership, we can't process the remaining funding. The brass is breathing down our necks. Is the patent still legally yours?" I walked over to my filing cabinet, the old metal one that still smells like nicotine and dust, and pulled the original stamped copy out from its envelope. My signature, dated notarized. Filed in Virginia under Eric A. Renner. The address was a shoebox apartment with blackout curtains and Ethernet cables snaked under the door. "Still mine," I told him. Silence on the line. The kind that sounds like someone pressing a speakerphone button while looking around a conference room. "I see. Would you be open to a formal verification process?" "Sure," I said, sipping coffee. "But I won't sign anything until I know what happened with the misattribution. We were told the patent was acquired with the company assets in 2018. Nope. Never transferred. I left the paperwork on Brent's desk back then. Blank. On purpose. Told him it was pending a review from counsel. Never followed up. Another pause. So it's technically still yours? It's not technical, I said. It's legal. That's when the tone changed. He knew it. I knew it. Brent and Ethan were about to discover it the hard way. See, the Vigil framework wasn't just software. It was the spine, the predictive neural mapping layer that allowed autonomous systems to sense intent in tactical simulations. No patent, no protocol. No protocol, no Pentagon contract. And without the proper transfer, the whole damn thing was built on sand. While the company scrambled, I received 3 calls from their legal team, escalating in tone each time. First, friendly casual. Just clearing up a clerical thing, no big deal. Second, curt. Pressured. We're going to need you to sign a backdated release so we can align with federal documentation. Third, thinly veiled threat. If this isn't resolved by Thursday, there could be repercussions. We'd hate for this to become adversarial. Adversarial? Brent made it adversarial the second he paraded his idiot son-in-law through my life's work like a frat boy who stole his professor's lecture notes and slapped his name on the cover page. I didn't answer the third message. Just saved the voicemail, titled the file leverage01.wave, and tucked it in a new folder called For the Fire. By Thursday, the Pentagon sent an official letter via encrypted courier. It acknowledged me, Eric A. Renner, as the listed and verified patent holder of U.S. 8713-990C. Adaptive Threat Anticipation Protocol, aka Project Vigil. There was a blank line at the bottom. Signature requested. I didn't sign it. Not yet. Instead, I poured a whiskey, sat out on the porch, and watched Brent's little empire tremble from the outside in. Dark amusement doesn't begin to cover it. They handed the Pentagon a crown. They just forgot to check whose name was engraved underneath. The moment the Pentagon froze the contract, Brent lost the last thread tethering him to his delusion of control. It happened at 2:13 p.m. on a Thursday, the kind of time slot normally reserved for HR webinars and awkward birthday cupcakes. Instead, a federal freeze notification arrived via encrypted fax. Pending verification of intellectual property ownership, Project Vigil is hereby suspended. Do not proceed with deployment or disbursement. The Pentagon doesn't ask nicely when they smell blood in a contract. They shut the damn faucet. I wasn't in the room when it happened, but I got a front row seat anyway, thanks to a panicked Slack message forwarded to me by an old friend who still hadn't jumped ship. #execcrisis. Michelle Legal DIR. We have a DEFCON level problem. Brent. What the hell does that mean? Ethan. Is it a VPN thing? Michelle. No. It means we don't own the patent. Pentagon Legal has flagged it. Contract is frozen until further notice. Brent. Get Eric on the phone. Now. They never said my last name, because they didn't know which one to use anymore. I poured a fresh coffee and leaned back, rereading the messages as if they were love letters from the gods of karma. My phone buzzed again, 6 missed calls, 3 voicemails, 2 emails flagged as time-sensitive. All ignored. I imagine the scene unfolding upstairs. Brent pacing like a rat in a burning Tesla showroom. Ethan trying to reboot his self-confidence with buzzwords he didn't understand. Michelle furiously scanning federal IP databases like she could somehow wish the paperwork into compliance. One of my former engineers messaged me anonymously. Dude. Brent just screamed, find me someone who can unregister a patent. I'm hiding in the server closet. Send snacks. They'd built $1 billion sandcastle on a foundation of assumption. And now the tide was rolling in fast. I could practically hear the boardroom walls sweating as Brent's voice ricocheted across glass and granite. What do you mean it's in his name? I signed off on everything. You signed off on internal documentation, Michelle probably said, still trying to keep her voice from cracking. Not the USPTO filing. That was never transferred. Then transfer it. We can't, Brent. It's not ours. We never owned it. He must have looked at Ethan then, the golden boy, the visionary disruptor, now shriveling under fluorescent lights and executive fury. His AI strategy deck still open, untouched, with the words gamified threat anticipation hanging like a noose in size 48 font. Meanwhile, at home, I was sitting in sweatpants watching Jeopardy reruns, calmly deleting every LinkedIn message that started with, "Hey, quick question about your availability." Because now they needed me. But I didn't need them. They'd mocked the quiet, laughed at the old guard, celebrated the handoff like I'd been a janitor polishing the floors of genius. And now? Now they were discovering the truth that every bureaucrat, every arrogant exec, every VC-fed wunderkind forgets until it's too late. Real power doesn't shout. It signs. It registers. It files in triplicate. And it waits. My silence was the loudest move I ever made. Brent sent me an email at 3:07 p.m. Just 6 words. "We need to talk. Urgent. Call." I replied at 3:22 p.m. "Talk to my attorney." He still remembers where you hung up on him in 2018. By the time the sun dipped below the skyline, stock futures had taken a dip. Internal memos hinted at contractual turbulence. Investors began asking for clarification. DARPA requested an updated project timeline. And me? I opened that dusty leather folder one more time, ran my thumb along the notarized seal. The original patent still pristine. The irony was almost poetic. They erased me from the room, but forgot to take the blueprint. The fall of Ethan Whitmore didn't come like a car crash. No screeching, no explosión, no flame vrecage. It came like mold, silent, spreading, and obvious only after it had already rotted the foundation. It started with a single headline buried in page 6 of Defense Weekly. Vigil contract faces technical hold. Questions around IP ownership emerge. No names. No scandal. Just enough smoke to make investors sniff the air. Brent probably thought he could bury it with a PR push and a fresh round of champagne promises. But 2 days later, another one popped up in Defense Tech Insider. AI defense project delayed. Sources cite inexperienced leadership, legal hiccups. That one hurt. Because once the phrase inexperienced leadership hits the wire, it metastasizes. And in this business, perception is performance. By Wednesday, Ethan was doing damage control on an investor Q&A livestream, one of those smirking, sleeveless vest-style broadcasts where he usually gave motivational speeches about disrupting warfare through synergy. Only this time he wasn't smiling. His forehead glistened. His eyes darted just a little too often to the side. And his voice, usually dripping with podcast confidence, cracked like old drywall. "Look, the IP issue is being addressed," he stammered, shifting in his chair. "It's a simple matter of administrative oversight. We're fully aligned with Pentagon compliance." A moderator cut in. "Can you clarify reports that the core patent isn't currently owned by your firm?" "Well, technically, the patent is undergoing. Look, we're in touch with the original developer, and it's just a matter of updating legal channels." Another investor, anonymous but clearly loaded, typed in, "You fired the original developer, didn't you?" Ethan blinked, froze, tried to smile, failed. I watched it all unfold from a weathered booth in a corner cafe on 7th and Fulton, the kind where the coffee tastes like burnt decisions and the waitresses call you Han, whether you're grieving or gloating. I sat by the window, laptop open, headphones in, the livestream muted. I didn't need the sound. His eyes told the whole story. His panic was the same flavor I wore the day Brent humiliated me in front of my team. Only his had none of the composure. Just that twitchy, cornered look you get when you realize Daddy's Rolodex can't fix what's about to hit the fan. The cafe's TV, one of those greasy, ceiling-mounted relics, flickered with a scrolling banner. Pentagon confirms. IP review in progress on Vigil project. Ownership not yet assigned. It was beautiful. Like watching dominoes fall in slow motion to a soundtrack only I could hear. And then, while I was stirring cream into burnt decaf, a courier walked in. Slim guy, badge on his jacket, eyes scanning like he was hunting a fugitive. He stepped to the counter, asked for me by name. The waitress pointed my way. He approached, pulled a sealed envelope from his case. No words, just a nod and a clipboard. I signed. The envelope was thick, government embossed, and heavy with consequence. I opened it right there, beside the sugar packets. Inside, An official letter from the Department of Defense. Clean language. Direct. The kind of clarity that only exists when lawyers and generals agree on something for once. To Mr. Eric A. Renner, aka Eric Hammond. Regarding Project Vigil/Patent US 8713-990C. The Department of Defense formally recognizes you as the verified and sole legal holder of the intellectual property underpinning the Vigil protocol. As such, your involvement is required in any further execution of the project. Until such arrangements are made, contract proceedings remain suspended. At the bottom, a signature I recognized from my early NORAD days. A man who once told me, "You don't need medals when your name's on the blueprint." I folded the letter slowly, tucked it back into the envelope, and smiled. Outside the cafe window, life went on. Kids with backpacks. Cars honking. A man arguing with a parking meter. None of them knew that across the river, a boardroom full of suits was probably tearing itself apart in search of a lever that no longer existed. They tried to erase me, and now their golden boy was sweating bullets on live stream, blinking into the abyss, and wondering how the hell a ghost just took the steering wheel. I left the cafe without finishing my coffee. The taste of vindication was enough. Brent reached out the only way cowards do, through an assistant. The email was polished, overly punctuated, and soaked in the tone of someone who once belittled you in a room full of VCs, but now wants to chat informally over lunch. There was no mention of the mess. No acknowledgement of the freeze. Just, "Hi Eric. Brent would love to connect and clear the air. Let us know your availability this week." Lunch is on him. Slightly smiling face. They always think it can be undone with breadsticks and a handshake. Like years of erasure and humiliation can be mopped up with a Caesar salad and a reluctant smirk. I didn't reply. So he tried again. This time himself. Blocked number. I let it ring until it stopped. Then he called again. And again. Fourth time I picked up. His voice had changed. Gone was the alpha croon, the cocky keynote baritone. Now he sounded thinner. Like the space around him had gotten bigger, and he was shrinking to fill it. "Eric," he said. "Let's not make this harder than it has to be." "Oh," I said, sipping my drink. "You mean harder than being replaced by your son-in-law in a room full of my own team?" Long pause. "That was poorly handled," he offered. "I see that now. I made a mistake." "Mistake's an interesting word," I said. "I usually reserve that for typos, not strategic betrayals." Another pause. "We want to make this right," Brent said. "You'll be compensated. A senior advisory role, full credit in the patent documentation. We'll refile everything. You'll still have equity. Hell, I'll sign over a bonus right now, mid-six figures, no vesting." "You think this is about money?" "Well," he muttered, "isn't it always? That's the thing about men like Brent. They only understand three things: money, control, and the illusion of forgiveness." He assumed everyone else played by those rules too. I let the silence hang just long enough to make him sweat. Then I said, calm as winter wind, "You already gave it away. Remember?" His breath hitched. "You mean Ethan?" "No, Brent. I mean the moment you decided your ego was worth more than your engineers. You gave it away when you handed a live Pentagon project to a podcast host in Patagonia Fleece." I was under pressure. "No. You were drunk on your own last name." That's when the rage peeked through his voice. Old, tired, desperate. "You don't understand what's at stake here." "Oh, I do. I built what's at stake." Click. No more calls. Within 48 hours, the Pentagon issued a public update. Project Vigil remains under active review. Due to IP verification delays, the program timeline has been recalibrated. Budget release paused. Evaluations of leadership strategy pending. Translation: the money stopped moving. The trust evaporated. And now the Pentagon was side-eyeing every handshake and signature Brent ever produced. By Friday, the stock dipped 11%. Monday, another 14.2%. Then came the analyst reports. Leadership instability around key defense contracts. Concerns over executive decision-making. Unverified claims regarding innovation strategy. A leaked email from the board surfaced online. We were not informed about the IP discrepancy prior to the Vigil announcement. Who signed off on this? The answer was always the same: Brent. And Ethan? Gone from socials. No more hustle posts. No more humble brags about leading the next revolution in military AI. Just digital silence. Brent tried once more. Not a call this time. A handwritten note, couriered to my door in an envelope that reeked of desperation and cologne. You win. Let's talk. Anything you want. Just don't let this collapse. I burned the letter in a ceramic bowl out back while the neighbor's dog barked like it smelled guilt. Because it wasn't about collapse anymore. It was about clarity. They didn't just underestimate me. They forgot me. And now the foundation they stood on was cracking, and the only man who knew how to repair it was watching from a distance with no interest in rebuilding. Quiet rage had curdled into something cleaner. Sharper. They wanted a miracle. But I was fresh out of grace. The Pentagon didn't send flowers or a parade. They sent an 18-page contract, hand-delivered by a man in a dark blue suit with eyes like frozen steel, and a voice that never rose above room temperature. Mr. Renner, he said, using the name like it mattered now. Like it had always mattered. He slid the folder across my table with military precision. No preamble, no flattery, just the formal offer. A new deal. No middlemen. No Brent. No corporate hand-holding. Direct partnership. Direct control. Direct compensation. Because when you hold the spine of a $900 million defense system, people stop asking if you matter. They ask how much. The final clause read, "The Department of Defense hereby recognizes Eric A. Renner as the sole legal and technical authority on Project Vigil and its affiliated frameworks. All prior associations with company name redacted are void pending audit." I didn't need champagne. I signed in silence. One stroke of a pen, and the project came home to the hands that built it. While Brent begged investors to stay the course had already veered off a cliff. The board held an emergency meeting the next day, an alignment session, as the memo put it. But alignment's a funny thing. Turns out, when you lie to your investors, alienate your top engineer, and gamble national security on a son-in-law who thought quantum computing was a font, people start asking questions you can't spin your way out of. The CEO was removed by unanimous vote. Not even a golden parachute, just a bland statement, and a sad photo of him walking out with a potted plant. I saw it online. His tie was crooked. As for Ethan, he didn't go out screaming. He just disappeared. His LinkedIn went dark. His Twitter bio changed to taking time to reflect. The last anyone saw of him, he was boarding a red-eye to somewhere warmer, somewhere without government hearings. The company rebranded within the month, desperate to distance itself from the stink. But everyone knew. Everyone always knows. And me? I didn't gloat. Didn't post. Didn't even leak anything to the press. I let the silence carry the message. Power isn't in the pitch decks or the press releases. It's in the signatures people forget to read. The fine print they skim. The names they erase until the system says, actually, he was never gone. 1 month after signing the new deal, I sat in a corner booth at my favorite diner. Same one I used to eat at after 12-hour shifts back when Brent still called me indispensable. The waitress, Rita, brought me the usual black coffee, side of bacon, no questions asked. Across from me, a crumpled copy of the Wall Street Ledger. Front page headline: Vigil resurrected under original creator. Pentagon severs ties with former firm. Below it, a photo. Me. Archival. From a conference 6 years ago. Mid-sentence, mid-idea. Back when I still thought loyalty meant something. Rita looked over my shoulder. "That you?" I nodded once. She smiled. "About damn time." I didn't say anything. Just folded the paper in half, nice and slow. Set it beside my plate. Watched the steam rise from the coffee cup as the morning sun cut through the blinds. Funny. They all thought I was old guard. Dead weight. Obsolete. But in the end, it wasn't my code or my pitch or even my silence that undid them. It was a single, forgotten line on a government document, filed under a name none of them remembered. Funny how a forgotten surname was sharper than any knife.